Hi guys, welcome back to another storytime video. So today's storytime is my preeclampsia story. Let me first forewarn you that this story is a bit spotty. When bad things happen to me, I have a tendency to forget many of the details, so I really had to sit down and think about everything that happened during my pregnancy in preparation for this video, so bear with me please if it's a little bit spotty. So in the beginning, I thought my pregnancy was pretty normal. I had the morning sickness. I was super tired. Tired was like the biggest symptom all the time. So tired. All I wanted to do was sleep. I had mommy brain. I was forgetful. I had the pregnancy superpower scent nose. I could smell things from like 5,000 miles away. So just pretty normal, right? It wasn't until maybe midway, maybe a little bit past the halfway point, so maybe like 26 weeks or so, I started to feel really itchy. Itchy is the first thing. So my legs were on fire itchy. Like I would tell myself not to scratch, but I could not. Like I thought I was gonna die if I did not relieve that itch. So I would scratch and scratch and scratch to the point of bleeding. Like I could not, like I was getting scars all over my legs. I just couldn't help it. My sister was like, I was living with my sister when I was pregnant. She was like, you need to not scratch, Dina. You're getting scars all over your legs. Like I'm not kidding, I would scratch to the point of bleeding. So yeah, that was a big thing, and it happened for a while. Like it was going on for a couple of weeks, and I would tell my OBGYN about it, and he was like, well, I would tell his nurses, and they were like, oh, just put lotion or whatever, just like dismiss me, you know. So I would try different lotions and all of that, and nothing relieved the itch. So after that, the next big symptom was I started to get really swollen, like Shrek status swollen. It just, and this was like maybe closer to like 32 weeks. I was huge, and not just my belly, everything, my face, my arms, my legs, my feet swelled up. I literally could not wear slippers. Like my feet were like hanging over the slippers. Like it was crazy. I was so swollen, and I would tell my doctor again, and he's like, you need to walk, you just need to walk, like you're not doing enough walking, that's why you're swelling up. So I would try to walk. I remember I would walk a couple blocks by myself and be super exhausted. It was so hard to walk with all of that swelling. And then I would like walk in the backyard. Like I would literally, my sister has like just a straight backyard, and I would just walk back and forth, just trying to follow doctor's orders, but at the same time thinking like, this is not normal. Like I am freaking huge. Like you can push in my leg and it would take a long time to pop back up. I was so swollen. And of course this whole time I'm really concerned, right? And I'm like, this can't be normal, but I'm doing the right thing, and I'm calling my doctor, and I'm going to the doctor, and he just keeps on dismissing me. He's like, this is normal, you know. And when you look it up online, it is normal. Like, yeah, pregnant women do swell, and pregnant women do sometimes get itchy, but to the degree that I had it, I felt like that was not normal. But what am I supposed to do? Like, this is the first time I'm pregnant. My doctor's telling me like, you're overreacting. He literally told me like, you're overreacting one time. So anyways, the next thing that happened would be my blood pressure. Well, that was why I was so swollen. Like my blood pressure would just be so high, and I remember we would go to CVS because my doctor had just dismissed me so much. We would go to CVS sometimes, and you know, they have the free low blood pressure machine, so I'd put my arm in there and it would be crazy. Like my blood pressure was crazy through the roof. And again, I would go to my doctor and I would tell him like, hey, this is, we went to CVS, this is what my blood pressure was. And then of course by the time he does my blood pressure, it's come down, but still it didn't come down to like a normal rate. It was still a little bit high. I don't recall what the numbers were, but he was like, you're fine, you know, go home. So I'm like itchy as hell at home. I'm swollen like a mug and my blood pressure is super high. And then finally I got really sick, like really sick. I mean, sorry if this is TMI, but I was in the bathroom literally shitting and vomiting at the same time. I could not stop. I would stay in the bathroom and it was just coming out of everywhere, and I was so weak because it was taking, I already did not have energy, right? And the little energy that I did have was being used like sitting on a toilet or hovering over a trash can. Like it was so exhausting. I was sweating, I was just vomiting, shitting. It was crazy. And I remember the final day I was in the bathroom all day. Like I would leave for a little bit of relief and I would lay in bed, and then not like 5 minutes later I was back in the bathroom. And so I remember my sister being really worried at this point. She was like, okay, this is not normal. Like this is not normal. And like she just looked at me and she was like, I'm taking you to the doctor right now. And so this is the part that I'm a little fuzzy because it all happened so fast. This was when I was 34 weeks, because this is when I ended up giving birth. So she took me, we left the house. I looked a hot mess. I didn't think that I would not be coming back to the house. But anyways, she took me to the doctor. I don't think she took me to my doctor. I think she took me to the emergency room or something. I'm not sure. But we went there, and the nurses like hooked me up and stuff, and they gave me a catheter, and like, oh, catheters, they suck so bad. But I remember being hooked up to everything, and I don't know, I guess they were running tests or whatever. This is all just like really hard for me to remember, but they were like, she has got to go. Like, we do not have what it takes here at this hospital. I was at Corona, I think it's Corona Regional Medical Center. They were like, we don't have what it takes here to help her. She's in like in a dire state, and we don't have a NICU. We don't have the equipment it needs to pretty much like save her life. So they called well, what happened first? Okay, I think first they were like, you're gonna have this baby today. Either way, they told me I was gonna have the baby today, and that they didn't have what they needed to do that. So I remember looking at my sister when the nurse said, oh, we're gonna have to deliver the baby today. I was like, you're kidding, right? And she was like, no, I'm not. And I remember looking at my sister, and she was like, I'm already texting Enrique, because thank God Enrique had just flown into New York maybe just a couple of days ago. Flown from New York, but the plan was he was going to fly into San Francisco where his family is, and he was going to chill with them for, you know, a week or two or whatever, because I still had 6 weeks, like a long time. So thankfully he had flown in from New York to San Francisco, but I think he was only there like 1 or 2 days before my sister texted him and was like, you need to get on an airplane right now, like Dina is going to have the baby tonight. So just this crazy mayhem. I remember, so they put me in the ambulance, and they transported me to Pomona, where they have a wonderful, like really great NICU and all of that. But in the transport, they put in 2 nurses, because that's like the state I was in. They were really scared that I could possibly not make it to the hospital. So they had like 2 emergency nurses that specialized in, well, they were transport nurses and they specialized in delivery and stuff like that. And when I say not make it, I don't mean that I was gonna give birth, because I was not in labor. Like, I mean not make it, like I might have a seizure or die. So anyways, they transported me all the way from Corona to Pomona. The transport was fine. I get there and I remember laying in the bed, and I remember my sister and my older brother and my mom and dad being on this side of me, and then in front of me was Enrique. So he had made it. My parents had picked him up from Long Beach Airport and they drove him all the way to Pomona Hospital where I was at. So anyways, it was Enrique, my older brother, my sister, and my mom and dad. And I remember like a specialist coming in, and he was like, he had this upset look on his face, and he was like, she is seconds away from a seizure. Like, he was really pissed that I wasn't taken care of earlier. I don't know if he read my chart or whatever and saw how many times I had seen the OBGYN regarding this issue, but he had this like really upset look on his face and this upset tone, and I remember him saying that she is seconds away from having a seizure. We need to get her into the OR, like, stat. So in order for me to, well, and then they started asking me, like, do you think you can deliver this baby naturally? And it was my birth plan to give birth naturally. I wanted to give it a go, even though I am the biggest baby ever. But they asked me, do you have the strength to give birth naturally? Even though they already knew the answer, I felt like they didn't want to take that away from me completely, because I was still able to speak and all of that. And I think I remember I went back and forth. I was like, yeah, I could do this. And then I was like, no, I can't do this. So ended up, and I think this was going to happen anyways, whether it was my decision or not, but it was going to be a C-section. So they were really worried because I was just in such a state, right? So they were saying that in order for me to go into the OR, I needed a blood transfusion, which, by the way, if you've ever given birth, that is not normal. You do not normally need a blood transfusion to give birth. So that should tell you the severity of what was going on. So in order to get a blood transfusion, they have to stick a needle in you. And because I was so swollen, they had so much trouble getting a needle, like finding a vein. I'm not kidding. I was swollen, and I already have pretty thick dark skin, so when I give blood, it's not, you can't see my veins. It's already difficult. You literally have to like squeeze it so that hopefully a vein will pop up. And so even more so, it was incredibly difficult. And I remember having, like, no joke, 3 nurses on this arm and like 4 on this arm, and they're all sticking me, and they're all putting rubber bands and tapping my arm, and like at the same time trying to find a vein. And I don't think I mentioned this, but before I was pregnant, I was deathly scared of needles. At this point, I was in so much pain, like I didn't even, my body shut down, like I didn't even feel it anymore. Like I could see them like jamming me with needles, and like I'm looking around at my family's faces, and that was the most painful part, was seeing their faces, because I'm just like, it must be hard to see somebody that you love who's also pregnant going through something like that, to see them in the state that I was, and to see like all of these medical professionals like in a haste, because like I said, the doctor said I was about to have a seizure and possibly die. So in a haste, trying to find a vein, and I just looked at my family's faces, and they were like, my mom was bawling, my dad was crying as well, silently. My brother Corey had like the wateriest eyes, and he was so serious. And my sister was the only voice I could hear. She was like, it's okay, Dina, just, it's okay, don't worry. Like she was trying to like get me through the them putting the needles in me, but I don't think she knew at that point that I could not even feel it anymore. And then Enrique was quiet, so it was very scary. And I started thinking to myself, like, if I'm in such a a very delicate state, like such a state of emergency, why would they let all my family in there? This is the logical person thinking. So I'm like, because normally they don't let family in when they have to really work on you like that and it's an emergency. And I was like, oh my God, am I dying? Like, did they let them in here because this might be it for me? You know? So I don't know. I was like, in my head, I was freaking out, but I was so just numb and getting stabbed a million times. But anyways, they could not find a vein. They just could not. And the doctor was like, you guys, that's it. Like, we just need to get her in the OR. We're going to try again with the anesthesiologist in the operating room. So they wheeled me out. And I remember saying bye to my family. Like, as they're wheeling me out, I remember saying bye to them, and you know, they're like, you're gonna be okay and all of that. And then the only one, of course, that was able to go was sorry, I have an itch. The only one that was able to go was Enrique, because he's the only one that could be in the operating room. So he came, and when I got in the operating room, they were gonna give me, well, the anesthesiologist was able to find a vein and stick me, so that was really, really good. And then they gave me an epidural, which again, could not feel anything because my body just shut down in terms of like feeling pain, which was a good thing for me. So thumbs up, body. But they gave me an epidural, and then we started the C-section, and it was really crazy, like being awake and all of that. And they told Enrique, do not look over the curtain. And what does he do? Like, he looks over the curtain and he was like, Dina, your guts, like, they literally took out all your insides, put them on a table, and then we're like getting Olivia out of my stomach. And then he was like, and then they just put them back in, like it was no problem. So to this day, he still jokes and he'll say, I'm the only one that saw your guts. You know, like, I'm the only one in this world who's seen your guts. So I don't know how romantic that is, but that's him being romantic, I suppose. So anyways, the recovery from a C-section is terrible, 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 terrible. I feel like I talk to a lot of moms because I work with 0 to 3, right? So I had to hear all of their birth stories, and it's definitely across the board. C-sections are just the worst recovery. For me, I stayed in the ICU for 2 days. I was in the ICU because and that's the intensive care unit, which again is not normal. When you give birth, you don't go to the intensive care unit. And this was probably the hardest moment of my life, was because, well, let me rewind. When they took Olivia out of me, they rolled her away immediately, and I stopped them from lying on the table, and I was like, can I just look? And they were like, no. And they took her away, and I looked at Enrique and I was like, just go, because you could tell he wanted to go. So I didn't even get to look at her, a glimpse, nothing. And then I ended up in the ICU for 2 days. And because I was in the ICU, I was not allowed to see her. She was in the NICU and I was in the ICU. Same hospital, different floors. But because the ICU is where, that's like the most medically fragile people, and you can't, the NICU is very, like, you have to scrub up when you go in there and all of that. And because I was in the intensive care unit and not in a state to be mobile, I could not see her. So I didn't even meet my daughter for 2 days, which was the worst thing of my life. I'm getting watery-eyed now, but so anyways, I was saying, imagine carrying a child inside of you for, in my case, 8.5 months, and not being able to meet your child for 2 days. Let's just take a moment to wrap your head around that. Like, unless you are a mother, I don't think you understand, or you could ever possibly understand what that feels like. So I'm in the ICU knowing that just in the same building my child exists, never got to look at her, never got to touch her. It was very not good. So while I was in the ICU, I kept asking, how can I get out of here? What do I need to do? Tell me what I need to do to get out of here and I will do it. And what it ultimately came down to, once they got my blood pressure down and once I wasn't like in so much pain, they were like, you need to be able to walk. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, this whole time I had been laying down in a bed. Like, what do you mean I need to be able to walk? Like, let me get up, then I can do that right now. Got up, fainted. Like, once I stood up, like, the amount of pain I felt, I passed out. Like, so they put me back in my bed. I came to and I was like, oh my god. So I had a physical therapist help me. We did a couple of sessions, help me walk again, and it was excruciatingly painful. But slowly but surely, I was able to do it, and that's only because the motivation was that I got to see my daughter. That's the only reason why I put myself through that amount of pain so much so quickly, was because that was the criteria to go see her. So I ended up doing it. 2 days later, I go to the NICU and I get to see her for the first time, and it was so emotional, like so emotional. I just remember crying like so much. So she's so tiny. When she was born, she was 4 pounds 13 ounces. And so when I saw her in the case, like, there was no preparing for that. She had so many tubes, and she was so small. Like, she looked like you just knew that's not what a baby's supposed to look like. So anyways, she just looked so fragile, and she had tubes coming out of everywhere, you know, a breathing, a CPAP. It was oh my god, I didn't know I would get emotional in this video. But anyways, I was expecting to just to be looking at her, even though I had known that Enrique already got to hold her and all of that. Like, I didn't think that they were gonna let me hold her, and they did. So I was sitting in the wheelchair, and they put her in my arms, and I just lost it. I was like, could not stop crying. But it was definitely the best moment of my life. So yeah, I ended up staying in the hospital for a week, but I didn't have to be in the ICU anymore. They put me in like the mother's unit, which was beautiful. I had my own little suite and all of that. And every 3 hours they had to draw blood. So sleeping or awake, every 3 hours they came in for a lot of blood, because I don't remember what they were testing for, and my blood pressure was definitely on, I was being monitored, and I was on pain medications, and the swelling was still there. It was going down, but very slowly. I remember one of the nurses was like, wow, I've never seen anybody so swollen, and I see women come in here all the time with preeclampsia. So it was bad. And then I don't know if you guys know, but your blood pressure affects your vision, and I had lost some of my vision. Like, nothing was clear, and that was really scary too. And I actually did not get my vision back completely until like mid-January, and Olivia was born on November 18th, so that one took a while. The swelling had already went down thankfully by then, but the vision, Hey guys, so my camera just turned off because it was too hot. I have it sitting, I mean, you guys should see my setup, but I have it sitting on a scarf and it overheated, so I'm gonna just hold it up for the rest of the video. So anyways, I was talking about my vision. My vision came back like months later completely, which was really scary because it affected my driving and everything. Like, I couldn't see signs clearly. It was crazy. But so yeah, I ended up being in the hospital for a week, and then Olivia was supposed to be in the NICU. The rule of thumb is when you're born premature, you're supposed to stay in the hospital until your due date. But because she has a mommy like me, she got out in 2 weeks, and she was supposed to be in there for 6 weeks because she was 6 weeks early, right? Yeah. But she got out in 2 weeks. She was doing really well. I asked the doctor, same thing like when I asked when I was in the ICU, tell me what the criteria is for me to meet so I could get out of here and meet my child. I asked her doctor, what's the criteria for her to meet so that she can go home? Because at this time we were living in Riverside and she was in Pomona, and like driving there every day, because we were not going to go a day without seeing her. So we were driving back and forth every day to see her, and I just wanted her home. Of course I wanted her to be healthy and ready to go home, and I was scared because I've never had a baby before, but I just wanted her to be home, you know. It was so heartbreaking every time I had to leave her in the NICU, you know. It just sucked so bad. So I just was tired of like my heart breaking on a daily, you know. So I asked the doctor, and he was like, well, she has to pass the car seat test, which is what all the babies do, which means you have to bring the car seat on the day that you think they're gonna go home, put them in the car seat, and they're strapped up to a monitor so that and then they do the duration of the time it takes to go home, and they want to make sure that their heart rate doesn't drop. But that's the last criteria. Before that, she had to drink, I want to say 60 mLs through a bottle on her own, because up until then they were feeding her through the tube. They had introduced the bottle, but she was not finishing her whole bottle. They were having to tube feed her the remainder of it. So they were like, she has to be able to drink everything from the bottle, because you can't feed her through the tube when you take her home. So we worked on it and we worked on it, and I was like, come on baby, like you could finish it, you only have a little bit more. So I was there's really not much you could physically do to make her keep drinking, but I was trying to be her biggest cheerleader. Both Enrique and I were like, come on baby, you could do this, just drink, 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 you know. And fortunately she was able to go home. She got the green light to go home after 2 weeks. She passed the car seat test, not on the first try though, which was like, oh my god, so heartbreaking, because she didn't pass, and I thought they weren't going to let us do it again that day, but they let us do it again right after, and then she passed. And then while she was, for Enrique and I, we also had to do like a mini CPR class. Like we had to watch a video and answer questions and stuff before we took her home. So it was quite an experience. All of these things and all of these little boundaries that we had to go through before we could finally bring her home. But it got done, and it's been so great. I mean, we're very, very fortunate. Olivia doesn't have any like developmental problems. She's flourishing beautifully, above average. You know, she's super smart, and this is not just me as her mom saying this. This is me as a developmental specialist, used to be infant therapist. She's well above average in all domains. So I am very, very blessed and fortunate that we both came out of this experience unscathed. I'm fine. I'm doing well. I mean, aside from some emotional scars, like I'm doing great. I'm healthy. You know, so it's been good since then. It's definitely been an experience. It's something that I will never forget. It's something that is very likely to happen again to me if I were to get pregnant, which is why my doctor told me that he strongly advises that I don't get pregnant again. But I do want another baby. No one in my family wants me to have another baby, which I completely understand. But I do want another baby, and I feel like when that time comes, at least I am a little bit more prepared. It's not going to catch me off guard. I'm going to know what's going to happen, and I'm going to take the right steps to make sure I can be as healthy as possible and not die. If I have to be bedridden the whole pregnancy, then so be it. Like, I just really want Olivia to have a sibling. And I'm willing to go through this for her because I firmly believe that I can make it. I believe that I can make it through, and that the baby can make it through, and that we can just grow our family. It's probably not going to be easy, but I really strongly feel that it can be done. So anyways, that's my preeclampsia story. I probably missed out on a bunch of different important things, but that's my story as I remember it. And if you have any questions, or if you've gone through, I know a couple people that have also had preeclampsia. If you want to share your story, or if you want to comment below, feel free. I'd love to hear your story. I do also want to say that every year, well, we've only done it once, but we're going to do it again this year. We walk for it's called Preeclampsia. Well, the Preeclampsia organization. We did it last year, so I will try and leave the link below. And if you follow me on Facebook, I usually post about it and stuff. So if you want to come out and walk with us, that would be great. If you want to just support financially, that would be great. If you just want to say good luck, that would be great. Everything helps, you know. Preeclampsia is very scary. It happens to 1 out of 8 women, I believe, was the statistic last year. So was it 1 out of 8? It's pretty rare. It's not common, and there's no explaining like why it happens. There's no little signs. Usually when it hits you, you have to give birth, and I've been fortunate enough that it hit me later on. I work with a lot of parents that have given birth at like 24, 28 weeks, because that's when it hit them and they had to get the baby out of them. So so yeah, it's a very serious, a very dangerous disease, and I just would like to raise more awareness for it. I wanted to share my story, and I wanted to let you guys know that although there are a lot of tragic stories where the mother dies or the baby dies or both, I am blessed that that wasn't the case for me, and I'm just blessed really to be here and to have my daughter. So anyways, that's my story, and I hope you guys, I guess it's weird to say enjoyed it, but I hope you guys enjoyed sitting with me and hearing it. So anyways, have a great Sunday, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.